Hello, we're going back in time from being back in time, so we're going further back in time. Did that make sense? I think it kind of did. To the origin of the Dryad and the tree. So hopefully you will get an idea of where we're going with this story so that we can also get an idea of where we're going with this story. Please look in the description. You will see lots of things there. You can join us on social media and you can buy books and you can support us by buying us a coffee. That would be lovely. If you get a chance to review us, please do so. It really helps the program. And yeah, it's been 5, 6 years now, so some good reviews would help. Even not only joking, we've had lots of good reviews. Okay, so I will have no more to say because otherwise I'm just wasting your time, which is not okay. Yeah, sorry, that's my editor. Yeah, I get it. I'm sorry. Yeah, enjoy. Fenrir, I've always disliked watching things die. That might surprise you, because I'm a wolf soul, you know. I've been one for much longer than I should have been. I've hunted, I've killed. I brought down and watched my fellow wolves take deer, elk, boar, and many other prey much larger than themselves. I watched and enjoyed warm blood run between me paws. I've I've watched prey understand what was about to happen in that last moment. There's often nothing particularly beautiful about that. Well, that final moment. It's simply necessary. Animal hunger isn't cruel. Animal hunger gives us or it a reason to kill. It's it's to me it's honest. That's what I was telling myself as I watched small human girl walk into the forest alone. She was young. I've no idea about edgy human whelps. They grow at different rates and have an irritating habit of becoming taller while you ain't looking. She had dark as night hair. She had little bare dirty feet, a small dress made from some rough spun cloth. She were clean and cared for. I could sense it. Her family would, well, they'd be grieving tonight because she, sadly for her and them, had absolutely no understanding of the danger that she was now in. It'd be sad for her family, but a happy happenstance for those with a predator's hunger. I was watching start of this little dramatic thriller from between trees. Folklore was somewhere behind me. He weren't speaking. He'd seen her too, though. He rarely spoke unless he had something worth saying. I was beginning to suspect that he thought most of what I said were not worth answering. To be honest, understandable. We'd been in each other's company for far too long now. The girl suddenly stopped as if in consideration. She must have been told that what she was considering at the moment was not an acceptable course of action for her. She looked around her. I recognised the small face, not of fear, a small face of tremendous thought. I could sense the considered enormous forest that had already begun to surround her. She were she were tiny in comparison, almost absurdly so to the life around her. The wolf appeared. It came slowly from behind a tree, slow, making sure it was seen and not a sudden shock to the young girl. It were a young male, healthy, strong, hungry, I sensed. No no concept of cruelty brewing in it, just a need. He looked at girl and girl looked at him. Neither moved at first. It seemed like a standoff between two great warriors. I suppose it were a sort. This went on for far too long, and the tension I felt was, well, it were proper palpable and really should have not have been as intense as it was. What did I care about this little moment? This was it was, it was just natural. She would make a decision. That decision would bring about a result. That result would be, well, it would just kind of be. But I felt something suddenly tighten in my chest. The wolf broke eye contact first. He dropped his head and sniffed the ground around his paws. The tension in me broke a little. He were calm. He was so, I don't know, unpredator like to me. he could have just snatched her up like the youngling she was. Why did he? Why didn't he? Then the wolf simply turned and walked away. The girl was still frozen in indecision. This were moment where she chose her fate. The wolf stopped. He looked back and met the eyes at human child again. The girl, girl, she she followed. I frowned a little, just a little. That was a clever move from him, considered and very clever. He wasn't being aggressive or growling. He wasn't showing teeth. He was inviting her the girl. Uh, the girl smiled. Hello, she said. Wolf lolled a tongue and panted. He walked just a little further into the forest, and the girl, well, she followed. I moved with him. I was now fully absorbed into this battle of sorts. I had choices. I mean, I could have stopped him. I could have. Wolves I can communicate with, but that were problem. I could have stepped in between them. I could have frightened the wolf away. I could have saved human girl in one easy movement. But the wolf was hunting, and there was nothing wrong with hunting. I understood hunting. I understood hunger. I understood the need to feed. I understood a predator's obligation to its pack. The wolf had made a simple decision, a decision to make, to gain a meal. The girl had made a decision. She had decided to be that meal. That was I don't know. That was life, maybe life and death in nature, maybe I don't know. And that was what troubled me. Strangely, it really shouldn't have. The wolf disappeared behind a tree. The girl followed. I followed girl. The forest became darker, not because the sun had gone, because the trees were older here. The branches tangled overhead. Roots pushed through soil, moss covered stones. The air smelled of damp earth and something else. Ah, I smell I smell me happy smell. Wolves, many wolves. I stopped. The girl did. I forgot that she couldn't sense of a shame. It may have saved her life. It may have. She stepped between two great trees, and there they were. Magnificent. The pack. 6, no, 8, 10, perhaps more. They're hidden from her sight amongst the trees, watching her gently. Strange. No sense of it. This all felt wrong. Their eyes shone in fading light, and girl stopped. She brought a finger to her mouth where she held it for a moment against her lips while she took in the details of clearing. She looked around and she smiled. It were a glorious smile. It saddened me that it would be a last. Hello, she said, like taking her hands now to dress and wringing them in the material at waist. I think this I think this simple action was a search for comfort in what must have been a frightening moment. I mean, it had to be, hadn't it? She must have been warned about wolves, mustn't she? One at pack growled. Ah, no. It were time to feed. Then another answered. The girl smiled. No, no, don't. I moved. Oh. She sounded delighted. I wanted to howl. I wanted to scream. I wanted to move, but I couldn't. I couldn't run and help her. Run to save little human. Run, human. Run now. But I remained still because I wasn't certain. The wolves had surrounded her. That was clear. The young male had brought her here, and that was also clear. And now, the pack were waiting and watching. I could smell their hunger. I could smell the girl's fear, but there was something else. An element of confusion. Wolves weren't moving. The girl weren't running. Something were wrong. I turned away and made my way into the foliage. I didn't want to see the inevitable. And then I fucking heard it. A tiny sound. A little whimper. I turned back to watch again, to watch the girl had heard it too. She turned to where the sound had come from. There was a struggle going on below a tree, a tiny struggle, a tiny fight of sorts. There was a small wolf pup beneath a fallen branch. No, not a branch, a vine of sorts. perhaps brambles and creeping species. Thick foliage had kind of wrapped around its little body. Its legs were caught and he was slightly suspended. Its neck was wrapped, its little chest. Every movement only seemed to tighten. The pup was. That was what I felt from these wolves. The pup created fear. Fear. They felt fear as that little pup struggled for its life. I looked around, little pup, suspended as he were. It was clear that Pack had tried to free it. I could see where many claws had torn at vegetation. I could see damage from chewing of many teeth. They'd failed. The girl took a brave step towards it. A small growl left the mouth of a large female as she moved to intercept the child, who stopped unsure. Another member of the pack moved at First Wolf's side and settled female's concern. The two animals stepped aside. The girl looked at them and another little smile. She looked at Pup. The smile left her face, replaced by a look of genuine sweet concern for the little thing dangling there.
I get it. You don't want me to hurt him.
The female wolf stared at her. I sensed mother. The girl looked at concerned creature and nodded.
I don't either.
She returned her focus to the little whimpering ball of fur stuck in Anne's of the forest. I was wholly absorbed in this little happening now. The girl was talking to the she-wolf, as though this were a perfectly ordinary thing to do. She then crouched. The wolf moved closer, her lips lifted, teeth, large teeth, enough teeth to end a human life very quickly, that's if she wanted to. The girl slowly, with obvious care, reached towards the bound pup. The she-wolf growled again. The little girl stopped.
I promise I'm helping.
The wolf stared at her. Girl pointed.
Poor thing, he's all stuck, isn't he?
The female wolf looked at Pup. Hackles were still raised. The male touched his nose to her flank and then looked back at Girl. A pause. Then the beast stepped aside. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The girl crawled closer. Her tiny hands reached deep into tangles. She touched the vines. The pup squealed in its fear and discomfort, and she just whispered to it,
Don't be frightened, little man.
She began tugging and pulling at vegetation around the little thing. Nothing were happening. She pulled harder. Everything tightened and the pup squealed. She stopped. She looked so upset but was deep in thought. She brushed her hair from her eyes and rubbed her hands together as she knelt. Then she began working at knots, not pulling but gently untwisting. At points she used her hands and teeth to separate fibres and suspended her little victim. One strand came away, then another. Her tiny fingers were proper, extraordinarily dexterous. She worked with great patience. The pup struggled, which didn't help.
Please, little wolf, stop wiggling.
She playfully scolded. The pup stopped its wiggle and just dangled as though it listened. I almost laughed. A wolf pup had apparently just been disciplined by a human child. Once wiggling had stopped, she continued one knot, then another. Pack had become completely silent. They were observant and tense, but they sat engrossed in the little girl at work. Forest had joined them in the silence. No birds, no insects, no wind, nothing. Only the little girl's breathing and self-chatter.
If I pulls this bit then, yay! Almost there, little doggy.
And tiny sounds at Pup. Finally, last strand came loose. Pup rolled free. For a moment it simply lay there as if dead, and then it stood. It stumbled a little and the girl caught it. The she-wolf moved in response. It was so quick, but were blocked by a large male. The girl, oblivious to this, just smiled.
You're all right, little one,
she said, supporting it as it bimbled a little before it was strong enough to hold itself upright. Her hands were still close, and the little thing sniffed her hand carefully, then licked her fingers. Girl giggled. The sound travelled through trees. The pack reacted, not with aggression, but with joy. One wolf began to howl, another joined, then another. Soon the entire forest seemed to be howling. The girl laughed even harder. She stood as the pup rubbed against her legs. She bent, knelt, and took it in her arms and hugged it.
You have very many big brothers and sisters.
The wolves moved closer. I prepared myself for what were coming. They won't waste her. But they didn't attack. They surrounded her playfully, getting within her reach. They were not behaving as predators. They were now behaving as her guardians. One lowered its great head. The girl placed her hand against its muzzle. Wolf closed its eyes and something happened. Something I cannot sort of properly explain. The air changed, the forest breathed. I felt it beneath me paws, a pulse, a warmth. Something moved through Earth's roots, something moving through ground, through leaf litter. The girl looked around.
What's that?
A little fear was evident, a little fear of the unknown. I looked too. The soil near sight a little wolf struggle had begun to move very slightly. A tiny green shoot pushed through earth. The girl saw it. She crouched to look at it, and the little pup, well, it just came over and joined her.
Hello.
She said to the shoot while stroking Little Wolf's head. The shoot moved in response. That were impossible. But then, I suppose so was I. A leaf appeared. Then another girl touched it. The moment her fingers touched the tiny plant, the wolves began howling again. Not in fear, not in hunger, in sort of celebration. The sound rolled across through the forest, and something inside me changed. I understood. The wolves had not brought girl here to kill her. The wolves had led her here because they knew that she could help. Perhaps they'd not known how, but perhaps they just simply trusted something older than thought. The girl had followed because she was curious, and because she was brave, and because she had not yet learnt lessons humans teach the children. That, everything strange must be feared. She looked at the wolves.
You're all very nice.
I laughed. They were bloody wolves. They were not nice, but they're not nasty or evil neither. They were just simply wolves. But perhaps that was the point. The little shoot continued to grow, a thin stem, two leaves now, then four. The girl and the pup sat beside it. The wolves gathered around them, and for a moment there was no human. No wolf, no predator, no prey, only life. I looked towards Volkor, and he stood beneath the trees, silent. His eyes were fixed upon the growing plant. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I knew that. I sort of knew what were happening. Something had happened. Something had been born. Not a creature, not yet. Something smaller, a beginning. Girl leaned towards tiny plant.
We'll look after you.
She smiled.
We promise.
Forest seemed to sigh, and somewhere beneath the earth something answered. I didn't know its name. I didn't know what it would become. I didn't know that centuries later humans would build around it and then out of it. I did not know that men would cut down trees and call it progress. I didn't know that a little girl would only one day walk from those timbers and forget who she'd been. I knew none of that, yet all I knew was this: a human child had saved the wolf, wolves had accepted her, and something in the forest had awakened because of it. Perhaps that's how magic begins, not with blood, not with sacrifice, not with this, whatever this is. Perhaps it's when two things that should fear one another choose not to. The girl was eventually led back to her worried home. The wolves watched her go back into that home. Her parents watched her wave at the tree line before rushing into her father's arms. The little plant, well, the little plant remained, and we stayed beside it for a right long time. Volko, well, he was mesmerised by it. For a long while, he just stood, silent, watching. Were he already guarding the first new life of this forest, and beneath the earth something dreamed, something green, something young, something that would one day laugh when the wind blew, and I think perhaps, I don't know, it remembered sound at wolves celebrating.